And welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to be concerned, there's lots of reasons to be concerned. We've talked about a bunch of them today. And joining us now is Congresswoman Renee Ellmers, Republican, of course, from the 2nd Congressional District in the great state of North Carolina. And Congresswoman, welcome.
Good to be with you again.
Well, it's always good to talk to you. All right, in your capacity on the committees that you serve on, these are right up your alley, I believe. And I want to ask you, first of all, about a story that broke over the weekend where the Obama administration, and here we go again. Here we go again. The president wants trust, and the left mocks the Republicans for saying they can't trust this president when it comes to passing laws on immigration reform based on what he's been doing. And now here he does it again. He has eased the rules for would-be asylum seekers, refugees, and others who hope to come to the U.S. or stay here and who gave quote-unquote limited support to terrorists or terrorist groups. I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall and I'm living in a fantasy world or nightmare, but this is true.
Well, and thank goodness that you're reporting on it, because there are others in the media world who would like to just brush this under the rug. Once again, we're seeing the president trying to take full control of a situation that is very bad, and it leaves Americans vulnerable. And his use of executive order is incredibly outrageous, and yet he continues to do it. But it points out a big issue here, just how incredibly important immigration reform is needed with illegal immigration reform, legal immigration reform, and security of the border.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, what is the possible rationale, and you sit on, I should tell people, the Energy and Commerce Committee, Health and Communications and Technology Subcommittee, and also the chairman of the Republican Women's Policy Committee. But I mean, what's the rationale? Why would we want to let anybody into this country who has anything at all remotely, even second-hand or third-handly to do, if you will, with terrorism?
Well, again, the American people are left vulnerable. This is something every American should be concerned about, and they have got to be asking the question of the president. I hope that the phone lines at the White House are ringing off the hook on this issue, because we are putting people at risk every day with these assertions that he would even take that approach. Why he would even go there at this point, I have no idea. And yet we continue to see this, and unfortunately I think we're going to see this throughout the rest of his presidency, as he still proclaims that he is the one who should be in charge and tries to bypass Congress at every level.
All right, so let's talk about now this attack on the power station in San Jose, which the FBI, as far as I've heard, has said, oh, no, it's not a terrorist attack. But for crying out loud, we have terror experts saying this was a dry run where they strategically knew exactly what they were doing, shot out the key components of that power station, disabled it for a long period of time. And if other substations like this throughout the country, which connect our power grid, are attacked, and some of them are only protected by chain link fences, we're done. Now, we could be done if there's a cyber attack against our power grid. We could be done if there's an EMP attack against our power grid. We could be done this way with terrorists physically attacking our power grid. And yet, we're vulnerable. I know people like Trent Franks and others have been out there for years talking about this. This is never mentioned in the media. And if our power grid goes down for 6 months, you know how many dead Americans there are going to be?
Well, there you have it. And the question is, why is this happening? Why are our enemies feeling empowered to do these things? And the reason there, again, it lies with President Obama. His lack of leadership, his lack of national defense, whether we're talking domestically or whether we're talking nationally and globally with our allies who don't feel any longer that we are standing with them, and yet our enemies do not fear us. And that's why they're testing these things. And that's what we have to prepare ourselves for. And again, every American in this country should be alarmed by this. And we have got to take recognition of it, and we've got to get a handle on it.
What is involved? And we're talking to Congresswoman Renee Ellmers here on the Steve Malzberg Show. What's involved? I mean, I know other countries have upgraded their grid. And from what I understand, we're talking about, I mean, even if we were talking about a few billion, but I don't even think we're talking about that much. So what has been preventing Congress from addressing this issue and shoring up our really, I mean, again, I can't stress enough, as you well know, power grid goes down, there's no gas pumping, so there's no transportation. That means no food, no medicine, no supplies, no lights, no heat, no air conditioning, nothing, and it could be months, and Americans aren't ready for that. There'd be disease, death, riots. So why then isn't this the number one issue on Congress's list?
Oh, national security is by far the most important issue, and definitely what our founding fathers put forward for us to address. And this is why, you know, there again, you said bang your head against it. Every day I ask myself, why does Harry Reid not pick up the legislation that we have passed in the House, whether we're talking about national security, whether we're talking about energy, whether we're talking about health care, whether we're talking about education for our children and job retraining programs. All of those things are sitting over in the Senate. Harry Reid continues to avoid bringing them up for a vote. We could have legislation. We could be addressing these issues, especially when it comes to these national security issues. And yet Harry Reid continues to prevent and protect the president from having to address these issues by those bills making it to his desk. And we have got to continue to urge Harry Reid and the Senate to vote on these issues. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see these things. It's happening in front of our eyes, and that's why you hear them denying that they're terror attacks. And, you know, of course, we need more information on any of these issues. I don't want to jump to any conclusions.
Right.
But at the same time, we have to take them very seriously. And that's one of the things that you don't see from the Democrats and you don't see from the president.
What's your take on what Eric Holder announced over the weekend, that the federal government will extend privileges to same-sex couples all across the country in any way they can, usually in the courtroom or elsewhere? I mean, again, this to me, this just shows a total lack of respect for what the states want, and an overwhelming majority of the states have voted to keep marriage defined between a man and a woman.
As it did in North Carolina. And, you know, this is once again the president, his administration, the Department of Justice, completely neglecting the rule of law and just putting in place the things that they think are going to win. You know, obviously these things that they're doing, I think that they understand that the American people have lost so much trust with them that they're just throwing things out there, trying to garner support from their base, from those that would be with them on these issues. And, you know, the thing of it is you just simply cannot do that. It's not the system in this country. You know, bypassing Congress is not the way to get things done, and why the American people have absolutely no trust for the president and what happens here in Congress. We're fighting so hard for the American people, and yet we're stopped with Harry Reid, the Senate, and the president and his administration.
I'm sorry. Let me ask you, in your capacity as chair of the Republican Women's Policy Committee, this nonsensical war on women. You've undoubtedly heard the remarks from Rand Paul lately, and I'm glad he broke news on this show with those remarks of calling Bill Clinton a repetitive serial sex offender. And here's the thing, or sexual predator. And here's the thing, you know, to me, when the Republican convention was labeled a convention of rapists by the media and the nutty left because of the comments of one congressman, and then 2 weeks later they went on, the Democrats did, and they had Bill Clinton as their keynote speaker. I mean, I noted at the time on the air the irony there, the hypocrisy there, and I got to give credit to Rand Paul for being the first elected official I've ever heard to bring that up. Do you see the irony?
Well, you know, I do, but here's the issue. We are trying to make our point with women in this country, that the Republican Party, that the GOP, that we stand for the great opportunity party. We want every woman in this country, regardless of where they are in their socioeconomic status, to rise up the ladder of success in their homes, in their businesses, on every level. So when comments like that are made, that turns women off in this country. They're tired of hearing that. And so we've got to do so much of a better job. You know, we want to make sure every American, every family, every woman in this country can accomplish what the goals are that they're setting for themselves. When we say things like that, we're not making progress. We're moving backward.
All right. So you think that, as I do, I hope that the war for women, if you will, is certainly winnable. I mean, I think a majority of women agree with the Republicans on many, many issues. I mean, look at the statistics. Look at the Obama White House, where the stories came out that they pay women significantly less than men. So the president stands up there, and at the same time, in 2012, a study was done, and they found that, though, but I don't hear Republicans the next day going out there and saying, hey, what's the president talking about? I think the Republicans never, or almost never, or let me rephrase it, they always miss an opportunity to get the word out there. They just are not as good as getting the message out.
You are absolutely right, and we have to do so much of a better job. And, there again, I'm standing up and saying, hey, those who live in glass houses. But, he knows it's a winning issue. He knows that women in this country care about their income. They care about making as much money as their male counterparts. That's what we have to be fighting for. While Nancy Pelosi, all the Democrats and the president are out there telling you that these CBO numbers are good, that over the next 10 years, millions of Americans are going to lose their jobs because of Obamacare. They're saying, oh, well, good, now you'll have more me time. We're the ones who are standing up and fighting, again, the great opportunity party. We're standing up and saying, no, that is unacceptable. Every family in this country, every parent in this country should be able to provide for their family and have the job and the skills that they need to be able to provide for their families. While the Democrats are now unified on this economy, and getting past the 2016 election by telling you that this is something you're just going to have to accept, the Republicans are going to be fighting for jobs and for success in this country of every American.
All right. So how do you feel about this challenge from the former, I guess he was an American Idol winner, Clay Aiken?
Well, let's clarify. He wasn't a winner. He was a runner-up.
Okay.
And which, I've pointed out already. Hey, I think it's great. I think that there's going to be a lot of attention that's brought to the District 2 election. I think this is really more about the voters in District 2 and what they're going to be looking for. There will be a Democrat primary, and it'll be interesting to see where the discussion is. It'll be interesting to see where Mr. Aiken falls on a lot of these issues. How does he feel about the president's use of executive order? How does he feel about Benghazi? How does he feel about Obamacare? And if the president comes to North Carolina, is he going to be standing there with him? Those are the things that I'm wondering about.
Yeah, I couldn't. I would pay to see you debate him, to tell you the truth. But it might not ever come to that. Hey, Congresswoman, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Good to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Congresswoman Renee Ellmers, ladies and gentlemen, Republican, of course, from the 2nd Congressional District in the great state of North Carolina. So much, so much to talk about. Never a dull moment. I mean, I didn't even get to the story out that Obama has taken the art of naming contributors, politically connected chums, to ambassadorships. I mean, we saw the guy who was going to be the ambassador to Argentina testify, and he's never been to Argentina. I mean, hey, don't cry for me, I guess, is the story to take out of all of that, or the moral to take out of that story, if you will. All right, we're coming back right here, segment ahead, as always, on the Steve Malzberg Show, right here on Newsmax TV and radio.